Tucket TV, NHTV, and BCTV present Election Live 2020 with Ken Bennett and Teal Caliendo, plus political analysis from Lonnie Reed and Len Fasano. Now, Election Live 2020. Now, Ken Bennett.
Good evening. The polls are closed in Connecticut, and now the count is underway. And we will be bringing you the results from our local state Senate and state House races, along with the 3rd District congressional race. Joining me once again on election night, Teal Caliendo.
Good evening. Glad to be back again.
We've been doing this for a while, huh?
A long time.
But never as many races and in 3 systems. This is
more exciting, I have to admit that. I mean, the last time we did a presidential campaign, it was 4 years ago. It seems like forever, and yet it seems like yesterday.
And we were concentrating on the local races again, but just for one system at a time.
We were so much younger.
Also with us tonight, and we're very, very pleased and honored to have Lonnie Reed, former state representative and a former reporter on local Channel 3, was it? Way back?
Channel 3.
And joining us also, the State Senate Minority Leader, Len Fasano, who is not seeking another term, despite many people who wanted you to do that. So it's great to have you here in an analyst's role. You two certainly know the politics in Connecticut and what the people are thinking and wanting. Any opening thoughts on how things went today as far as the polls and all we've been hearing about absentee ballots?
You know, I mean, I was on the phone with Denise Merrill a little earlier, and then a whole bunch of the poll workers in Branford, and it went well. You know, we have, there's been so much drama about whether the ballots are going to be well counted and whether, you know, the whole system was going to hold together and whether we could handle it. And you know, the reality is we have a lot of people who've worked these polls for years, and they've counted absentee ballots, and there was a huge influx of more than ever, but they pulled it together. And so that's the feeling I've gotten, is it went really well. And also, when I drove around and said hello to a few people, everybody was very cordial. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know if that happened all over the state, but it felt like there was a level of civility on the line, so that was nice.
Len, you represent chunks of several towns, and in the future you'll be that private citizen once again. Right. But as a private citizen, how did voting go for you today, and what did you observe?
Well, it went very smoothly. I think there were some concerns that we would have some problems out there, as Lonnie said, with the absentees and the COVID and the distancing and the time it took. But I think people, at least I saw in Wallingford, North Haven, East Haven, I went out to Branford for a little while, all recognized the concerns that people had for social distancing and were very respectful, were willing to wait in line. I thought that, I think the turnout is heavy. A couple of places I know, in checking with my colleagues watching the Senate races, there were percentages up as high as 83% in some towns, wow, which are incredible. Berlin, they thought they would hit close to 83%, but they were at the high 70s in most, and that was about 4 o'clock or so. So I think it's a big turnout. We'll see what all that means as the returns come in, but there's definitely been a big turnout.
I think there was a combination of excitement and relief.
Mm-hmm. I think on a number of fronts. I think people, but typically, you know, with all the ads, people just get tired of being called.
And the monetary ask.
Yes.
You know, everybody wants money. Oh, we're going to lose unless we have money. And I think, you know, so many of the folks that I know are saying, you know, I'm giving, I'm tired of giving, you know. And I think there's that as well. It just never stops. And it's an industry, you know, as we have been in reporting and having reported on elections. Now I spend a lot of time in New York as well in television, and you really see it. It gears up, and it's an industry, and this is their break-even season. You know, this is when you make your money. So the advertising and I think the populations get a little worn out by it all.
I think so too.
This year was, the last 4 years have been tough because usually after the election, you can rest for a while. There has been no respite from the whole political system. It's been exhausting.
It has been. And you know, a reporter called me today and asked me, do you think that the message what's happening in Connecticut was overshadowed by the national scene, and therefore the messaging on what your senators or reps, Republican, Democrats, could do for the state of Connecticut was lost in all this? And to your point, I think that has overshadowed, and I think it's hurt the ability of, I think, elections for state positions have been overshadowed by this national politics. You know, none of these presidential candidates are going to be calling any of our representatives or senators and asking them for opinions. But what really matters is their vote and their policy decisions here in Connecticut. And I think that was very tough to bring across in the last, I would say, complete 4 years. And that's very sad. I think Connecticut is a loser on that end in terms of getting people who are voting to really have a clear understanding of this policy or that policy.
I think one of the things that your comments lead me to reflect on, and it's sort of like a pitch for the likes of NHTV, BCTV, and Tutucket Television, we have the hyper-local ability to give attention to the local, the municipal, and the state legislative offices, and in some cases other offices. And a lot of towns don't have that, and there is somewhat of a cloud out there whether this kind of cable access can exist even in the future. I can't imagine the three areas, the three systems that we're on right now, not being in existence, because as I go through these areas, so many people will comment, I saw the election coverage, or I saw the candidates forum, or I saw the parades, all the kinds of things that local cable does. Do you get a reflection from people of appreciation? I know it's not just like patting ourselves on the back, but it's like we have something that is not common.
Well, we used to have, and I think every town, or most towns could say this, we used to have local news. I mean, we have some blogs now, but the local newspapers are gone. And so the only way that meetings get covered is when cable access goes in with their cameras and the live, the live hearings and all of that. And I have so many folks say to me constantly, we got to keep that going. The fear that budget cuts or whatever, and all of the things that go on with how these things get funded and what the structure is, and how vulnerable it can be at times. This is a critical service that's being provided, and to what Len was saying, when you think about this, the congressional and the state Senate and the state House races, these are the people that have the most immediate connection and response to constituents. These are the people that you call. And, everybody else are doing a great job, but, they got masses of people. It's hyper-local, and an ability to really interact with these folks and to deliver your message and to feel included. So I think it's really important to not let them get short shrift on a night like tonight, because, these are our neighbors, and they're going to be, and whatever happens in Washington, and Len and I know this because we've worked together on a lot of things, sometimes you have to come up with a plan that rescues, your state from what's going on in Washington. No matter who's in the White House, Republicans or Democrats, because the priorities can get twisted to a point where maybe you're not the number one priority, and so you have to figure things out and come up with some ideas on how to do our own budgets, and work together to do rational things in response to what's really happening on a national level.
Len?
I agree. I mean, I think this local access channel and ones like this are paramount as newspapers are being less read, and the local atmosphere of individual attention to local issues are being lost. And I think we could step up local access a little bit more, and get a little bit more into the topics that really affect people in this area, almost like a local news. That would be very good sort of for each one of our local access to do. And I think that's the only way we're really going to get the true flavor of what's happening in your community. When you're talking about the turnouts, if I can, Greenwich is at 82%, just to give you an idea, and that was at 4 p.m., just to give you an idea of an update of the turnout that's happening all over the state. One way or the other, I don't know how it's going to all cut, and whether people are splitting the ticket or not, who knows, we'll see. But that just speaks to the energy that's out there in this election that's being unleashed.
I want to remind people that we're being seen simultaneously on BCTV Brantford, NHTV based in North Haven, and Totucket TV. And these are the races that we expect to be getting results as soon as they become available from the 3rd District Congressional race, 12th District Senate, 34th District Senate, 86th District State Rep, 87th District State Rep, 98th District State Rep, and that's an unopposed situation, and the 102nd District State Rep. So these are coming in by various means in this electronic age. Some of it is telephone, some of it is internet, et cetera, and it'll be a little while before we're up and running with all of those. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen in terms of reporting results of absentee ballots and the mail-ins and things like that. Do you have any insights into how long it might take in Connecticut to have tallies for those things?
Well, I think the absentee ballots under the bill that we recently passed allow them to be tabulated or run through the machines as of 6 a.m. I think a lot of the towns took it up as 10 a.m. For the most part. So I don't think, at least in the towns we're talking about, I think we're going to be fine. Maybe New Haven, that's not on our list, and those results for the 3rd Congressional District will say. I don't think there's any drama with respect to Senator Looney's race or other races in that district, so I don't think that's going to matter. But with respect to the 3rd, that will take some time to tabulate those.
Somebody just texted me from our ballot counting central in Brantford and said that another 600 ballots came in after 8. So, they've pre-counted all the others, and now there's new ballots. And you have to make sure that people didn't forget that they sent in a ballot or changed their minds and showed up as well. So they're double checking all of that. So there's a lot of meticulous going through the stuff to make sure, but everybody feels on top of it.
So we have a good chance of having a lot of results tonight that may not be the kind of results that other places will be having. Teal?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Any thoughts, Teal, on the
Well, I did hear a
using
story
paper,
about
to vote?
I did hear a story about somebody going in and trying to vote, and it came up that he had already cast a ballot, and he said he was just checking the system. Well, apparently the system did work, and he said he was happy. He just went with his previous absentee ballot. But I thought that was sort of funny that somebody was checking up.
Yeah.
One of the things the governor did recently at the behest of the Secretary of State was, so what we have is we were allowed to open up, we allowed the different offices to open up so you have the outer envelope and then the inner envelope. The inner envelope must be signed, and that has all the identification. So you could pre-sort those into districts, particularly where senatorial district is split in a town or a rep district, you could put it in the right basket. And if there was an error, you can call the person, contact the voter, and say there's an error, come correct it, if they didn't sign the outside. Originally, we allowed it open up that early, and then we changed the rules to allow those to be corrected. And they did that on Friday with a governor's order. The problem with that, some towns didn't recognize that you could cure it. So some absentee ballots were cured in those towns who took advantage of the program, and some were not cured in those towns who didn't take advantage of the program. I think that's a little unfair, and next year we need to make sure we have a standardized system throughout the whole state, so some people vote by absentee are not advantaged in this town versus that town.
I heard a funny
How was
story.
the state able to do this so well? Where did the monies come from?
The money's come from the CARES Act and from which the federal government put in money to get out the vote. So that money from mailings, particularly, and doing all the mail housing that the Secretary of State did earlier and all that stuff, that came from the federal government. I think it was a 90-10 match, something like that. I think they got $3 million and there was some match. So the Secretary of State, and I give her credit for that, I've been critical of her, but I give her credit for that, for using that money to get the vote out. So I would say that that was something that was a positive.
I was just starting to say, this is all a learning curve for everybody. And this idea that we're now in a pandemic that's not going away anytime soon, and that we're retrofitting all our systems to be able to deal with it. But I heard a funny story today that, in one of the towns, apparently people were using so much hand sanitizer that it was making it difficult for their ballots to go through the machine, which reminded me of, I think, was it New Haven, where they were wet? Because people were standing in the rain for so long, or their hands were so wet from the rain, being in the rain for so long.
That's right, a couple years back.
So, there are all these sort of looking at new ways to protect the paperwork before it goes through the machines. But hand sanitizer, people were being very conscientious.
Well,
We
one
have a-
advantage was we all got to keep our pens. So,
Well, I brought mine.
no, really, when you voted?
Yeah, we were advised, bring your own pen.
Yeah.
So
They
you
let
weren't?
you keep it. I
I'd like
went
to
home
check
with
the budget of that town.
Yeah, well, and my wife also, we brought our own pens, and that was, and our driver's licenses, and we just did it, and we were in and out very, very quickly. There was more chatting going on outside the polling places than inside. I mean, they really moved things along, which I think helped get the lines moving, and with the social distancing. I also want to comment that on a TV screen, it's hard for you to know, but we're not wearing masks because we really are 6 feet apart. Try to touch me, Teal.
Try to
Teal.
touch
Teal, over here, look. Teal, touch me.
I can't.
See? Okay, and that's what's
I'm
happening,
in a
although...
different zip code way down.
Yeah, the angles of the camera may make it look like we're much closer. This is the first time that I've been in an environment where I feel like I almost have to shout, Len, for you to hear me. But I know we've got great acoustics and a great sound system. So this is very different, and also they call it the ingestion of the numbers is going through in 2 different offices, and then eventually we get them as soon as they are released. But I wanted to talk about the future, because with the census, once the census data is in, each state has the responsibility of restructuring based on the population and things like that. We're probably all familiar with the concept of gerrymandering, where some of the districts accommodate more political concerns than actually the way constituencies should exist. Do you anticipate in Connecticut that that's going to be a very controversial, perhaps, battleground once the census data is in?
Well, I mean, I think everything's controversial these days. And, one of the interesting things that's happened, and certainly several people I know, New York neighbors, when I lived in New York City, they're moving to Connecticut. So we actually have an influx of people, and very politically active people who are arriving here. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see where they're going to live, and how those districts are going to be shaped, and how they're going to feel about that and all of that. So, I mean, I think we're going to handle it because we do very well with these things. But I just think controversy is, the mode of the day, and clickbait, and oh my God, it's going to be terrible, and so it kind of gets into that tumult, of getting everybody concerned and upset about it.
So I served on redistricting 10 years ago when we did it. It's a very interesting process. It's a very political process. But what happened was, since then, there's been a lawsuit. And the lawsuit talked about gerrymandering and the inability of making sure that different folks are counted differently. So for instance, if you're in jail, you get counted being in jail. And they
Wherever the jail's located.
Yeah.
the jail's
Yeah.
location, correct, as opposed to your last residence. And the question is, why shouldn't it be their last residence? And the argument is, well, was it rental residence? Was it their home? Are they going to go back there? All those issues came up. So I think that what you're going to see in this redistricting, I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're going to see a number of lawsuits early on to ask the courts to intercede and allow certain representatives to be part of the redistricting. The way it works is leadership in the House get together, they do their map. Leadership in the Senate gets together and does their map. If there is a dispute, they already agreed upon a moderator, and then it goes back to a final panel for final confirmation. But I would be very, very surprised if there is not a lawsuit to say, I think having two major parties at the table is wrong. The minority parties are not represented, and certain issues are not adequately represented in a map. Where that goes, I don't know. We start that in February. Money is given to us by the federal government, and the state puts money away for this. But the process begins, as you say, the census is done, the numbers will come out in February, and then they'll start working on a map. I don't remember the deadlines that everything has to be, but it has to be done before the next election, 2 years from now, as I understand it.
Wow.
It's a big process, and I think it's going to be a litigious process.
What is the impact of the census counting the number of people, not necessarily counting the number of U.S. citizens or voters in the redistricting process?
Well, it can redraw the lines. So I think in the last census, at one point, I was going to have part of East Haven. And so it was Branford and East Haven, but I was going to lose a part of Branford that I had that was going to go over to Guilford, and of course, as we all know, the various representatives in the various communities come to and go, wait a minute, So it gets very contentious, but it can literally redraw the lines, and suddenly you've got a part of your new district. You have people you've never met, and they can be from communities you don't really know that well, and so you have to get up to speed really fast, and so it's very interesting stuff.
And I think, a couple of years ago, Connecticut lost, a couple of years ago, now it's going to be a long time ago, but Connecticut lost population, so we lost a congressional seat. As you may recall, they combined the two congressional seats. That matters down in Washington, matters for money. The number of people in the state matter relative to funds that you get from the federal government, so that's a factor in making sure everyone fills out the census form. And basically, House represents about 40,000 people. The Senate represents about 100,000, so if you lose population or gain population, it's like a balloon. It just moves in different ways. When I first ran, the incumbent, Senator McDermott, very nice man, the district was Wallingford, North Haven, and I forgot now the other town he had. He may be some of Hamden, I can't remember. And we cut that out. It was East Haven, North Haven, and Wallingford. And then when we redistricted 10 years ago, I picked up part of Durham, and Senator Looney moved into part of North Haven. So it does move, and it makes a difference to who your representative is as well, and the number of representatives you have at the congressional level.
So, again, the census just counts people. College students would be part of your constituency?
Yes, they are considered part of the constituency because they lived there at the time the census is taken.
Well, and I was called the head of our adult education school, which actually is a regional school in Branford, called me to please come and speak to a lot of his students they had become American citizens, but they were very nervous about filling out the census. They weren't quite sure what that was going to mean, and if they were going to suddenly have to leave their per diem jobs and be on juries. And, there was all this stuff. And, I really had to talk to them about what they were going to lose and what their community was going to lose by not being counted. But there was a fear factor. And It was, and there were so many interesting, there were 48 different nationalities represented in,
Wow.
in the adult education classes, which was remarkable.
Well, there is that fear because I volunteer at a church where a lot of immigrants do go, at least was a couple of years ago. Now everything has changed, but people are afraid and you have to be very careful. So it could obviously impact the census.
Absolutely, absolutely could. That's the reason why it's based on a number of people. We want
Yes.
everyone to be included because if they're here, they should be counted. It counts for federal money, and we lose out unless everyone is counted. So it's a big issue.
So one of my friends in New York, who is actually, she's retired, but she was a reporter for ABC News, is telling me that it's been announced that Connecticut has gone for Biden.
Wow.
Do we have any of that yet?
We are not getting the numbers right now.
I would bet the ranch that that's probably correct.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's correct.
I'd get that out on that one.
It feels correct, but you never know. So
Is that 7 electoral votes?
I don't know. To be
You know, I
honest
don't
with you,
know.
I don't know.
it's 8, right? Wait, 5, 6, 7, right? Yeah.
Some of the local issues this time around involved Take Back Our Grid Act.
Sean, you
the
hear me?
Question of criminal justice reform, the police, and the Desegregate Connecticut. Do any of these particular topics, and we didn't hear about the tolls yet, but what topics do you anticipate the legislature is going to be dealing with, perhaps as priorities?
Well, as someone who chaired the Energy Committee for several years, and we just saw this, Eversource and Avangrid now. I mean, these are, national, international companies, really. Their delivery fees were skyrocketing, so they don't generate. But so you get a deal in the generation, but by the time it's delivered to you, I mean, so that's going to be huge. And Pura, the commissioner of Pura, who comes from Maryland, and so she's had experience in this, and she was really shocked at the way because they keep saying they're deregulated. They're really not. They've got regulations through Pura. And so we really sort of have to create, I tried to pass something called 2.0. So it was Utility 2.0 to really revisit the way we manage utilities. And that issue is not going to go away. And so I think it's going to be huge.
I think you're going to see the budget obviously be something that's going to be talked about right away. The numbers are looking better, but that doesn't mean that's where it's going to stay. We have a budget shortfall, so I think you're going to see that pop up. Police accountability bill is going to be revisited. Not a doubt in anybody's mind.
We are having an interview right now with Sean Scanlon, who ran unopposed in the 98th district.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Sean.
How we doing?
It's like Big Brother.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So was it a tough race, or how'd it go?
It was a tough race, but I prevailed against myself. So
No trips up, no mistakes. Good.
Do you have your little boy with you?
he is in bed.
Oh, gosh.
So Mom and I are in for a long night of watching television results, and hopefully not a long night of him crying, but we'll see.
Sean,
Yes.
what will be your priorities for the 98th district, especially since you're really a unifying force, having run unopposed?
Well, listen, the first, second, third, fourth thing on the minds of every voter in the state is coronavirus and how we're going to have Connecticut recover from it. And I think that we are making a lot of very good progress. But obviously, there's a lot more that we have to do when it comes to helping our small businesses in Brantford, to helping make sure that everyone has affordable health care. And I know that that will be a big focus of the legislature next year. And I'm going to continue doing everything I can to make sure that we not only get through this, but then come out stronger on the backside of this thing.
Can you tell us, so we get a sense of it, how many votes there were for you today?
Well, the results are just coming in so far, so I don't have a final count. I know that I did okay. That's what I can tell you with certainty. But I haven't seen the final numbers just yet.
Did you experience anything unusual at your polling station?
Well, this year was so different because so many people voted by absentee ballot ahead of time that, the usual post-work rush that you stand out there, between 5 and 8 o'clock that Lonnie and Len have done so many times, there was nobody there. Because by that time in Brantford, about 85% of people had already voted. And so it was very strange in that regard. Obviously, the converse of that was this morning, the lines were so long, longer than I've ever seen them. And I think that really just shows you that, number one, the work day for a lot of people has changed, what that looks like. But number two, I think a lot of people really wanted to get to work or get to the polls, earlier this year because they feared those long lines. And so it looked a little bit different, but the turnout is probably going to be about the same as it was 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I haven't, again, seen all the results, but I think that what we're going to see, hopefully, shows that we continue to have one of the higher turnouts in the state, which I think bodes well for Brantford.
So just as an aside, I know it's not one of the races in this area, but just in East Haven, I believe Joe Zullo has beaten Dave Yacarino Jr., who's the state rep's brother.
Yeah, who's a Democrat.
Son. 6,716 to 4,010.
Wow.
4,710. So they're saying that Joe Zullo has retained his seat in East Haven.
Wow.
So
You've been in the legislature since 2014, and your background is very, very varied in terms of financial and criminal justice and so many things, revenue. Where do you expect to be most focused, perhaps with committee assignments?
Well, for the last 4 years, I've had the honor of chairing the legislature's insurance committee. And so because of that, 99% of my time has been spent on healthcare policy. It's something that was one of the main reasons why I decided to run for the legislature in the first place, because I really wanted to try to make sure that folks had quality and affordable health care. It's something I actually worked a bit on with Len on because he's been, during his career, he's been a really big champion for bipartisan health care reform, and we have been able to get a lot of bipartisan stuff done. But again, COVID has changed the world, and it's changed the way that people look at healthcare, and I think it's changed for me the need for us to do more to improve both the quality and affordability of healthcare. And so, we'll see what the future holds, and I'm not sure if I'll be back as the insurance chair again this year. That's up to the new Speaker of the House that we're getting. But I will always remain interested in healthcare and hope to continue making a key difference in that area.
And I really hope you stay in that zone, and I know you will, even if I know you're going to chair insurance or public health or something. But I keep hearing from so many people of how drug prices are skyrocketing during COVID. And so here's another thing of opportunistic pricing and the pay to delay issue where, when the patents are running out and they can go generic, there's a whole sort of interior system where you can pay the generic company to delay releasing it and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's something you're so good at. And so I really hope that you stay fighting for us.
I also may add that Sean is one of those people at the Capitol that you're able to have a conversation with bipartisanly across the table.
Yeah.
And you're willing to exchange ideas. And, we need a lot more of that at the Capitol, I think, in certain areas, particularly in those areas of healthcare and budgeting and things of that. And Sean has always been someone that, you could just call up and say, hey, look, here's this great scoop. What are we going to do? How are we going to go about this? And he'll listen. And I thank you for that, Sean, very much.
Do you see the opioid epidemic and mental health as major issues also in your district?
I do. Look, when I first got elected in 2014, it was sort of the height of the opioid crisis, and it was something that a lot of people were not yet comfortable talking about because there's still a great deal of stigma around it. Fortunately, we are breaking that down, and in the last 6 years, every year we have passed a bipartisan bill to try to tackle the opioid crisis in Connecticut. I have to tell you, though, that in the last 8 months during this pandemic, that has gotten worse. mental health has gotten worse because of the strain that people are on, whether it's because they lost their job, whether it's because their mental illness is not being treated because they can't go see the provider, whether they can't get access to the kinds of medications that help people overcome substance use disorders. All of those things have added a tremendous amount of strain on our already very strained mental health system. And I think one of the big things that we have got to do coming out of this pandemic is to figure out once and for all how we can solve that problem, because the more that we continue to ignore that, the more and more people who will have those mental illnesses unchecked. And when those mental illnesses are unchecked, it's very hard for them to lead the kind of productive lives that all of them want to lead, but they just can't get it because the help is not there for them. So I really believe that will continue to be a big thing for us, especially as this pandemic continues for the next few months, because the strain that it's putting on people is just tremendous, and we have to do something about it.
So I think Vin Candelora, they're waiting for the absentees, but I think his margin is such that it's a 2,000 vote margin. So I think Vin Candelora is doing very well.
So in the 86th district, you're getting some information that Vin Candelora, the Republican incumbent, is likely to return? And
Yes, he's
I'm
likely
trusting
to
you to say this is a reliable source.
I would say it is reliable source. It's someone who's counting it. The absentees are not in yet, but according to the machine, Vin's numbers are 4,473 to May's 1,647. So I think that those numbers are such a spread that the absentees are not going to really matter. Not final, but that's a preliminary number that I think is very reliable.
Well, in Vin, and actually, which is really good for our region, and another person who works in a bipartisan context and very loyal to this region, is probably going to be the minority leader in the House, because Themis did not run again, Themis Claridis, and so that's huge. So now he's going to have an even stronger leadership position, and that's going to be good, I think, for our entire region.
Thank you, Lonnie. And we're going to wrap it up with Sean right now. And we are waiting for Mark Riccio. And I guess we know the way people voted this year, if Biden won, locally, some of the Republicans still held on to their seats.
Yes, I think that's true. Mark Riccio is a dear friend of mine. I've known him since he was 7 or 8 years old, so we go way back. Yeah,
Well,
long
and
time.
I think we have Mark coming up right
That
now.
would be great.
Mark, are you there? Okay, we have a video, but we have his picture, but we don't have any sound right now. So we will get back to him in a minute. Hello, boys, do we have it? Oh, there he is. Sorry to come up on
There he
you
is.
like that. We just sort of took you by surprise.
Mark, what information do you have in terms of the results?
Hi, this is Mark Riccio.
We got you. This happens all the time anyway.
Yeah,
It just does.
Zoom land.
Exactly. We will be talking with Mark Riccio. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you, Len. What was going to happen if the state went with Biden? Was there going to be a reverse coattails? And apparently, things pretty much stayed status quo.
Yeah, I think that Connecticut is very used to splitting their tickets.
Yeah.
I find they're very educated voters here in Connecticut, and there's been a lot of splitting of tickets. So the fact that Biden, also the big cities, control a lot of
Yeah.
the votes at the end of the day, and we see that in the gubernatorial races. So I think that it doesn't mean a sweep by any sort. So I'm getting some results in. I'm getting some results in from some other districts. Henry Martin, who's a state senator of mine out in Berlin, is doing very well. Senator Sampson, a returning Republican, Southington area, is doing very well. So even if we want Biden, I'm seeing some Republican looks to this. So we'll have to just keep tabs of what's going on so far. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't see this blue wave happening at a lower level,
Land of steady habits, I guess.
which is good. I think people should run. I mean, I think the way people should be elected is on the person, not on a party flag, not on any myths, but on what that person says, what that person eventually does, and should be judged on the character of the person, not on the red dot or the blue dot that's next to them. Because I think there is no broad brush. You can say that person is 100% this or 100% that, as much as people like to put you into
The
categories.
categories.
I mean, Lonnie and I worked together before she was even a legislator working on Broadwater. We were sharing some things before. And that's how Lonnie got involved in politics.
I actually found, the way we are, we're all becoming furious cleaners of our houses. So I found this whole stack of our water, not Broadwater. And Broadwater was the enormous floating liquefied natural gas plant that was proposed for Long Island Sound. And they were also going to trench through with a huge pipeline. I think it was about 30 miles long to Long Island. And it was going to totally impact not just the aesthetics and the environment, but the recreational use of Long Island Sound and the commercial use. So Len and I got together, and several other people, and actually we had a huge bi-state rally at my house in Branford. We had New York come over, and we all got together on both sides of the Sound and said, we don't want it. And we ended up killing it. So here you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I haven't seen this in a long time. But you know what that speaks to is why people get involved in politics. I think, do we have Mark up now? I see him behind us at least.
I do
Oh, there
see-
he is.
I do
Over
see. Are we
shoulder.
all set with Mark now? Okay.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Mark?
Yes,
I think
can
we
you hear
can
me?
hear you now.
Can we
Hello?
get it in this monitor here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we
we
can
can
hear you.
hear you now. Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you very
good.
well.
What results did you see regarding your district?
Well, from what I understand, and I can't see the screen right now, but I believe I'm about maybe before the absentee ballot results, and there's about 7,000, I heard anything between 7,000 to 8,000 absentee ballots, and we're waiting to receive that count. I believe I was up by 600 votes.
Oh.
And that was in with District 1 in, District 3 in, District 4, 5, and 6. So all the districts are in. We're waiting for the absentee ballot count. But, we can't get too excited yet because, we just don't know what that count total is going to be.
Did you say that number was 7,000 to 8,000 absentee ballots?
That's what I understand. Yes, sir.
But now, where are they right now?
Well, remember, and that's 7,000 to 8,000 town-wide. So remember, the 102nd district is only 5 of the 7 districts. So I don't know how many ballots, I don't know how many absentee ballots for the 5 of the 7 districts. I just don't know that number.
So we're a ways from knowing an outcome in that particular district.
I think so. But going into right now, I'm trying to get someone's attention. Hey, Miles, can you get Reed over here, please? From what I understand, going into the absentee ballot count, someone told me we were up 600 votes, but that is very unofficial right now.
Well, Mark, it's Len. I don't know if you could see us or
Hi, Lenny.
what you have. Listen, that's a great job. I know it's going to be a nail biter while you're waiting for these absentees, but that's a good showing on the machine, absolutely. So for your first efforts out, that's very congratulations to you. And let us
Hold on,
know
Lenny,
about
Lenny,
the
hold on one
absentees.
second. How many votes am I up before the absentee ballots? Do you have a number?
I gotta take a screenshot.
All right. Okay, we'll get that number for you guys in a minute.
And Mark,
Yes.
it's Lonnie. I'm
Lonnie.
seeing that you're leading in the 5th district, which is really kind of a bellwether district. Do you have those numbers?
I'll get those numbers for you.
Okay.
Do you mind if I scream over to my other side?
No problem. You know, this is live TV,
Yes.
and we're going with the flow because we don't have a playbook.
Hey,
You know,
Randy?
we have a great quarterback, but he's making it up as we go along, and part of it is just based on the technologies, but also on basically the facts of life. You know, what numbers are in, and there aren't very many, and then what the absentee ballot situation might mean. But this is the first instance that we've heard where those absentee ballots have a tremendous amount of weight in determining an income. And I don't think we have a pool going on how late we will be broadcasting, but it's just hard to say how long it's going to take to manually go through these things and certify them and then come up with something that is distant enough between two people in order to represent a declaration of a victory, if that's in the cards tonight.
So there is a
I have
little
I have
surprise
numbers for
going
you
on
guys
in
if you
another
want 'em.
district, I'm told, which is in Milford District. The current senator is a Democrat, first termer in there, and currently he seems to be down. And I think a lot of that has to do with Stryker, who's running for Congress, is from Milford. And maybe those coattails are pulling the Republican over. He's up by 3,000. And I will tell you, as a Senate Republican leader, looking at our board when we're running this, we felt he had an outside chance, but probably wouldn't be able to pull it off. But I think with Stryker pulling in those numbers, those coattails apparently have gone down to at least the Senate level, state Senate level. So that's going to be an interesting race to watch because that is a surprise to both sides of the aisle. As you know, we communicate a lot as to where we think we've moving some pieces.
Right.
And that was left out of both.
Thank you, Len, but we have some numbers now from Mark Riccio. Mark, do you have those updated
Ye-
numbers for us?
Yes, yes, I have the numbers for you. Okay, first district, Riccio, 1,054. Comey, 830. Third district, 340, third district, Riccio, 341. Comey, 489. Fourth district, Riccio, 1,025. Comey, 1,077. Fifth district, Riccio, 875. Comey, 595. Sixth district, which is my home base, Riccio, 1,002. Comey, 636.
Mark, would you repeat that first district?
First district was Riccio, 1,054. Comey, 830.
And any idea how many absentee ballots?
I heard it was between 7,000 to 8,000, but that is town-wide. Remember, we're only 5 of the 7 districts.
It's a lot of votes.
So, right now, the count is I'm ahead 4,298 to 3,628. But again, we got a long ways to go. No one's celebrating yet. And, but I would like to take this opportunity, if I may, to congratulate my team. It was an amazing campaign. And I certainly energized the Brantford Republicans. We got our message out. We were very heavy on digital marketing. We actually connected to 33,000 households with 300,000 impressions since September 1st. And we knew that COVID was going to be an issue. We knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors, but even with that, people wouldn't answer the door. So we took a a very aggressive approach with social media, and hopefully it paid off.
Mark, what
We
does your
all-
company do, Specialized Data Systems? Are you working with other political organizations?
No, I own a software company since 1989. We specialize in two areas. One is lending software, where we do a lot of mortgage banking software. We do business with a lot of banks throughout the Northeast. Then we have another division, which is a risk management platform that does something called business continuity software, which is designed to help organizations plan for disasters such as hurricanes, tornadoes, and if you can believe this, pandemic events. We've been helping the financial institution plan for pandemic events for the last 10 years.
If you
this is
do
nothing
become a state legislator, what priorities or what committees would you be most interested in?
I know the banking community is very interested in having me sit on the banking committee. I would be interested in transportation committee. Those would be my two favorite, and of course, environment, being from Brantford, since that's a very big topic here in the shoreline.
Thank you very much. We right now have Robin Comey, who is standing by. Gentlemen, do we have the video? Thank you. We're having a little technical, Robin, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. What can you tell us about what's happening right now?
So my understanding is that I have won the race by 15 points.
I can't hear her.
Could you repeat that where we didn't hear you?
You won by 15 points, is that what you're saying?
That's what I've heard, yes.
By 15 votes?
15 points? And that's with absentee ballots and all of the districts in?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're saying 15 votes, Robin? I'm sorry, it's Len Fasano.
No,
Oh, sorry?
15 points.
Points,
So,
Percentage points?
So,
percentage points.
15 percentage points.
Do you have an
So-
indicate? Go ahead.
I could share with you. I could probably share with you the screen. It was 57% to 43%.
Oh,
Am I able to share my screen with you?
Yes.
sure.
Sure.
Okay, I'll do that. PCTV.
That's PCTV.
Let's see.
Calling with a.
Have all the absentee ballots been accounted for?
I'm not able to share my screen with you. You've disabled it. Yes. So
So I'm guessing the third was a key district. What were the other, and the second, oh no, you're not in the second. What
I
was-
am in, all right, I'll go through it for you. Okay, in District 1, which was voting at the community house, we had, what the trend was, or what the, turnout was that most of the people that showed up, that Mark Riccio won most of the votes in person today, but that the AB votes were over 4,000 for me. 4,116 to be exact. So the total for the districts my total was 7,478. Riccio was 5,477. Those were for the Democrat and Republican columns, and then independent Riccio was 199, and working families Comey was 265. So the
I'm sorry.
total votes cast were 13,419.
Is that with the absentees?
Yes.
That includes the absentee votes. So that's my race.
So are you feeling celebratory?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Yeah, it's,
Hint, hint.
it's a little, it's quiet here, so we're not having a big
Who won
party.
the absentee ballots?
Just because we're of
won
COVID, but
the
I am,
turnout today?
of course, thrilled and just really happy
So
about
the absentee
being,
ballots,
having the trust
4116,
of Branford
4,116.
voters again.
What were the major issues and what do you anticipate doing in the legislature next time?
The major issues during the campaign.
Yes.
Well, I think, so I can tell you that while I was door knocking, the major issues were,
So,
of
this is
course,
some
our
of the
public
stuff I
health
wrote down.
pandemic, the public health crisis and the pandemic. And people were quite pleased about the way the governor was handling it and the state was handling it. Many people felt very
So she's saying in the actual votes in
proud
the
of
first
that work.
district,
And then, of course,
She got
education and
7,478.
kids. People want to make sure
Riccio got
that their kids and their
5,477.
families are cared for and that they can go to school safely, and that's the top of mind for everybody.
And in the next legislative session, what priority will you bring?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot on our hands with the education. We have sort of an upended education, public education system right now going on, and we're going to need to come full circle and make sure that not only are the kids getting a quality education, whether in person or online, over the next 6 months or so, 9 months, but that our teachers are well cared for. So I think that we need to focus on prioritizing those issues.
Who's in the House with you tonight?
Right now, I have my campaign manager, Alex.
Would they like to come into the picture? I mean, it's not like a ballroom with a buffet going on.
That's true.
No, it's not.
Other members of the
I
press.
don't. And there's other members of the press here, so I don't know if you want to include
It's fine,
them as well.
just to
But I
get a
can turn
sense,
around.
just to get a sense of what it's like to be in a candidate's.
It's pretty boring, to be honest. I'm not at like a restaurant, or we're trying to figure out how to get the radio to work.
Oh, look at that. Awesome. And they've got masks on.
they've got nice waves, very nice exuberant waves.
We're at downtown Branford at Gather, which is a pop-up place that my friend owns, and she was generous enough to let us spend a few hours here tonight before we go home to our families, who probably would like to see us at some point.
Well, it's been quite a night, and I'm impressed with the fact that the absentee ballots are accounted for already.
Branford did a fantastic job, and I would like to reach out to the Registrar of Voters and the town clerk and to all these folks that have been so flexible with the changes with the Secretary of the State and the swift counting of the absentee ballots, as you mentioned. Other towns are still waiting for their numbers to come in. So I'm just thrilled at how hard they work and
When did they start counting?
this morning they did start counting around 10 o'clock this morning.
And they got it done.
Got it done. I mean, there are some, just to clarify, there are some ballots that are, that were dropped in the box today. How many? 600 ballots that were dropped in the box today, and they will be counted Thursday night.
But at this point, that wouldn't change the outcome.
No.
So Robin, Mark put on a really strong campaign, and I know how hard you guys worked. So congratulations.
Thank
It was
you.
a tough,
I would
tough
like to
race.
say that, I did hit about 2,800 doors since the middle of the summer, up until just last night. I knocked the last door right here on Main Street here. So I think voter outreach is critical, and it was evident to me that people, this is my first term, but it was evident to me while I was door knocking that people knew who I was, they knew the work I was doing, and they were interested in becoming engaged voters for this election.
Thank you very much. We're going to come back on set right now. And,
Okay.
Len,
Thank you, Robin.
Robin, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
Say
you,
hi to
Lonnie.
your kids.
we'll talk a little bit about the 34th, because obviously you know that intimately. What do you think is happening there? Do you have any information?
I have absolutely nothing to share.
I was going to say, I was just wondering about that.
Joe Zullo is an incumbent, won in a special election in February of, right after the election 2 years ago. So him getting a lot of votes is going to help certainly Paul Ciccarella, who is running against April Capone. April Capone was the mayor of East Haven for 4 years,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yes.
She's a nice person. I like April, I do. Paul Ciccarelli grew up in East Haven and then married and moved to North Haven. So he has the benefit of being in two districts at the same time. But I don't have any numbers on the 34th yet. And I'm told I'm going to have them shortly, but I don't have any yet.
Did April work for the state government in any capacity that interfaced with the legislative people?
Yeah, she actually worked for the Democratic State Party.
Yeah.
Then she worked under Governor Malloy, where there was, she watched bills as they progressed through that Governor Malloy wanted. So she had conversations with legislative leaders such as myself. And now I believe she works for Yale Hospital in the transplant unit. Because she had given up her kidney for someone, as a matter of fact. So that's where she's working now. So I don't have any numbers there.
Are you surprised that we don't have numbers yet?
I am, but it's interesting. I'm looking at some of the races throughout the state. As leader, I got to keep tabs of some of these things, and there's some surprises, one side or the other. I'm hearing there's a close race with 3 of our incumbents. Which is very surprising to me. So we'll see how this thing plays. There's no pattern that I could dive into and say it's this or it's that. So it's going to be interesting.
No, we are still waiting with North Haven, and it's probably going to be another 10 or 20 minutes for some reason.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I get some information.
So Vin Candelora, we've said he's won, right?
Yes.
So he's won. Sean Scanlon ran unopposed. He's won. Robin Comey has won. Do we know anything about David Yacarino, or you're saying North Haven is coming in
That's
soon?
what we don't have right now.
How he's doing.
Preliminary numbers on Laporta and Christine Cohen, the incumbent Democrat, and Laporta being the challenger. That's still going on. But it might be a tougher fight for Laporta at this point. And I am told in the 34th that preliminary indications are, I don't have any numbers, that Paul Ciccarella has won the 34th, taking my seat.
Wow.
Okay. Do we have any word on what's going on with the national, with Rosa DeLauro's district?
rumors, so I don't want to speculate on that one. The other ones are people who are in the room counting ballots, if you would, as they go up on the screen. So I don't want to speculate on those. I was looking at the Joanna Hayes in the Sullivan race and Rose's race with Stryker, and I don't want to speculate, but I think those are still two ongoing races.
In the 86th, what was top of mind beyond COVID?
I'm sorry?
In this race in the 86th, what was top of mind beyond COVID, do you think?
Well, Vinnie Candelora, who's the incumbent, is a very strong legislator. He's
Close.
expected to be the next leader of the House, which gives him a certain amount of clout, which I think helps in his district. But he's a constant campaigner, and Vinnie is every place. He's equivalent to Dick Blumenthal on the Republican side. He's at every event and every location, and he's very eloquent when he speaks. And he's someone who reads every bill. I mean, that's a guy who reads every bill that comes down the pike, and he's very bipartisan. He'll have conversations about anything and everything. Very well liked at the Capitol. I think all that adds a big plus.
Yeah. Well,
You
he's
agree, Lonnie?
an attorney. Oh, I do. I mean,
Don't hold that against him, though.
he's an attorney, he's a businessman, he's a huge business in North Branford. He's got these great kids who've played every sport, and he's been a coach.
That's right.
And he's at every game, and he's just, omnipresent, ubiquitous guy. And he is, as Len says, he's the person that you call when you're trying to find a way through. And I work very closely with him. Actually, Len and Vin and I and several other people came together, was it 2017, to pull together a bipartisan budget to really begin dealing with the structural deficit, because the state had not paid into the labor pensions for years and years and years. And I had gone around, we all did, but I had been in Seattle and Virginia and stuff and talking to states that had budget gaps. And they all resolved it with bipartisan budgets. So I was really shocked that we were going to try to ram something through and not bring everybody together. Len was bringing folks together, and Vin, and so we were working the House and the Senate, and we were able to pull it together, and we ended up with a bipartisan budget. And it was so interesting. I think my leadership was a little miffed at me for a while, and then they started bragging about we had a bipartisan budget, and they took credit. It was like they were all excited about it. But that's what happens sometimes. But it's like everything in life. You reach out for the people who are the can-do people, and whom you can talk to, and who want to solve the problem, and not play the blame game. And Vin is one of those, and Len as well. So
I will say, and Lonnie is downplaying the courageous nature of her actions in the House, and I really mean that. Look, when leadership says, this is what you have to do, and this is the way you're going to march, sometimes it's very difficult to buck leadership. And Lonnie and others, but Lonnie was the leader on this, saw that this was the wrong path for the state of Connecticut, staked her ground, forced a bipartisan budget eventually out of all this, and that is the budget for which, absent her bravery and the ability to say, I'm not just saying this because she's here, I've said it before and I'll say it again, absent that, we would not have $3 billion in the rainy day fund. We would not have a constitutional spending cap. We would not have a constitutional budgeting or a budget limit. We would not have that if there's a lot of money going over a certain amount, the money is going to be put into the rainy day fund. We would not have $3 billion that's going to help bail this state out because of COVID, absent the courage from Lonnie Reed in the House and 3 Democrats in the Senate who said, no, this is not the right way to go. And that is what's going to save the state. Long after she hasn't served, what she's done is going to be something that this state is going to use, and we're going to be okay with the budget because of that. And she downplays what she did.
I just got one numbers from Wallingford. Apparently, Rosa DeLauro did outdistance a Stryker, but only by 420 votes.
wait, for the full district or?
Wallingford.
Oh, in Wallingford. Okay.
Wallingford. But our you surprised? Are either of you surprised that it's as tight as it is? Was this the toughest race for DeLauro so far?
Yeah, I think her other race before this that might have been tough was Tom.
Oh, the
Yeah, no.
radio guy.
Yeah, Tom Scott.
Thanks.
I think that was a tough race that he had. But look, Stryker put a lot of money in, her own personal
Yeah.
money. She ran a great campaign, and the truth is her Rosa DeLaura's strength came from Worcester Square and Italian-American heritage that she always laid out there. And when Christopher Columbus, statute right or wrong, she didn't really weigh in on that. I think people got upset, at least not explaining why she wasn't weighing in to some extent. So I think that has caused her some trouble. But 420 votes are just not going to offset what's going to happen in the cities
Yeah.
that are going to put that over. But that is an excellent showing by a first-time candidate, never held office. So that's a great showing. And it shows when you're in politics, you could never let your guard down. You got to watch everything going on. And even if you disagree, you got to say why you disagree with your constituency so they respect you for your disagreement.
We have some results. Apparently, New York and New Mexico have gone for Biden. Is that, yeah, obviously, New York's going to go for Biden. Trump so far did get Florida, Louisiana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Nebraska. That's all I've gotten in so far.
The Dakota, you said both Dakotas?
Yes, I
Okay.
have South Dakota and, oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to hear if, nobody's talking to me right now. South Dakota and North Dakota for Trump? Hello? No, I'm not getting anything right now.
We did hear during the various campaigns, a lot of the candidates talked about bipartisan. They have a good record working with the opposition parties. And at times I wasn't sure whether they were actually speaking about Connecticut or on the national level, the idea of bipartisan cooperation. But from what you've experienced is beyond a legacy, do you anticipate that the next legislative session, with so much at stake financially and the exodus of people from the state and money exiting and things like that, and I'll throw in the tolls because that, you know, it was amazing where that went into the hold file. But is there a sense of bipartisanship? Or I know one of the other comments that came out in one of the candidate forums locally was the idea that the governor has all this power with the pandemic. I mean, it was extended, I think, into February. Not everybody was in favor of that. But what hope is there for a bipartisan or an even more bipartisan approach to the next legislature?
I mean, I don't know how Len feels about this, because he's just been through this last session. I mean, I don't know how you did it. You know, the idea that you're, I mean, I guess the circle got together, but in the House, you know, most people were in their offices voting. I mean, the whole thing was so bizarre, and it was so difficult for, you know, for state representatives when they went back to their districts to kind of say what they did on account of they hadn't met, they'd been shut down. But I can't imagine, I think that's one of the things that you hear constantly when you talk to people, is they want us to be brought together again. You know, this incredible strident attack dog approach to politics, I think, is just not only exhausting people, but it's you know, exhausting all the young generations who are coming up and, you know, want to see their futures. You know, how are we going to save and create bountiful futures for everybody? So, you know, from my perspective, I can't see us getting away with not coming together in a more bipartisan way. What do you think?
You know, I would say that there was some, I have some numbers, by the way, in the 34th, but there are some political strategy in letting the governor have control from the majority position. From the majority position, you run the state, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So if you let the governor make decisions, you get to sit back and say, I agree with that decision, or I disagree with that decision. You're always on the side of good, because you could sit, wait back, put your finger up in the air, and then judge what you want to do, but you're not making the decision. When we pushed for legislation that said, let's change this emergency statute such that we have the right, if we want to appeal his decision with a group of 10 of us that's on this pandemic by virtue of the statute group, we can, by a majority, appeal his decision. That gave us accountability. I disagree with that in getting the cover of the governor. So there was a strategy, I think, that was put into play by letting the governor have that authority going into an election year. I honestly believe that. Number two, I believe this last session was the worst session for bipartisanship. I don't think there was. I think bills were pushed through. I don't think they cared what anybody else thought. I think after being tied or close to being tied a couple of years back and in the closeness of the House, they felt the doors were open and they were going to make up for lost time. That's honestly what I think. And I don't think Connecticut was served better by it. And we're seeing that. We're seeing bills that were passed that had to be corrected, which would have been corrected, but we didn't really have a session. I don't like voting in our offices. I've been a staunch in opposition of that. This is the people's house. This is where we come together and vote. Staying in an office and listening to debate from the office with no guarantee that that person in the office is in that office, that raises very big questions. I believe in the institution and it should be protected at all times. And when you allow people to sit in their office and someone to push the button, and I'm not accusing anybody, but someone to push the button, and I will say it honestly, I have never seen, I think Lonnie will agree to this, I have never seen a session in that building go 24 hours where the majority had all of their members for every single one of their votes for 24 hours in the House. I have never seen it. And not that it didn't happen, but it certainly raises me to say, trust but verify. What is the mechanism we're going to verify that that's the legislator hitting that button in that office? We're going to do it in the office. People have to be certain that the person they elected is there to vote. That's number one. But we should be doing the business in public, voting in public. That's what we should be doing.
Well, it brings up the idea that, for example, CPAN, the Public Affairs Network, CPN, they at some point they didn't have programming. They didn't have hearings. And so
Right.
whatever was going on was zoomed, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, Len would agree with this. I mean, you need to be in the room with people. When you're making decisions, you need to see the body language, you need to see the eye roll, you need to the people who aren't talking, sometimes that's perceived as agreeing, when in fact, frequently it's like, uh-oh. You just have to get a full feel for every aspect of negotiations. And the idea that it's, done virtually, and when dealing with really critical issues, I think really we need to kind of revisit how we approach this all.
Len, you said you've got some numbers?
So I have some numbers for the 34th district. April Cabone, 11,288. Paul Ciccarella, 12,427. For
Without-
Rosa DeLaura, I have 11,840. And for Stryker, 11,420.
Wow.
Wow.
In other races, there's Craig Fishbein, who's a Republican in Wallingford, beats the Democrat by the name of Jinx. So he'll retain his seat. And there was also a hotly contested race, Liz Lanahan, who is the Democrat, and this is Cheshire, Wallingford, and Salamone is the Republican challenger. Liz Lanahan, 1,120, that's only got to be part of the district, I apologize. So let's not go there. But Salamone lost the Wallingford part of the district to Liz Lanahan. So we'll have to see what Cheshire does with that. And Mary Mashinsky, who is one of the longest serving representatives, Democrat, was going against a new individual who did a great job, Olbrook is his name, and Mashinsky was 5,938, and Olbrook was 5,357. So Mary Mashinsky will continue to serve, and she's been serving for a long period of time. In that same 34th district, Biden seems to be ahead of Trump in that district.
That district, the 34th, did that include the absentee ballots? Do you know?
I believe that's, as far as I understand it, to be everything.
Okay, so there's an 1,100 vote difference, but that may be standing if the absentee ballots are already accounted for.
So they're splitting their votes.
They're splitting the votes past that.
We are going to, I believe we have, excuse us.
We're really socially distanced.
Socially distanced.
We have.
We're very responsible here, very responsible.
Bring in the pigeons.
There he is. We have David Yaccarino, and we're going to speak to him as soon as we can zoom right in on him.
He's right behind you.
I'm
Does
right
he have
here.
sound?
Hi, Dave.
Can you hear us?
Hi. I'm on.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi,
David.
Len. Hi, Lonnie.
David, that sign in the back
Hello.
looks kind of old. It says re-elect Fasano. I kind of like that.
Fine with
A
David.
little bit out of date, but maybe I didn't know something.
Paul,
Hey, Paul,
how you doing?
congratulations.
Hey, Len.
Hey, Paul,
you so much.
congratulations. That's Paul
Thank
Chickarelli
you.
running for the 34th.
Oh,
Chris. Thank
And-
Chris.
Hey, Fletch.
Yes, they're both there. Okay.
They're
How
together.
you doing?
Both there. They are
They're at
together.
North Haven headquarters.
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear from the campaign manager?
I'm here. Guys. Guys.
So Dave, how did the numbers work out? How'd you do? You did all right.
I won. Paul won.
Good for you.
Can you give us
Did
some
well.
numbers and
It's
whether
always
they...
a team effort, you know, Len. It's
Wait a
team
minute.
effort.
I
You
have
a lot
some
of help.
numbers, I believe.
We got to thank, AJ and Chris and Mike and Frank, my campaign manager, really the town committees, really the people of our districts. We're very fortunate. I'm going to miss working with you, Len, to be honest with you, but I'm looking forward to working with Paul. And I miss working with Lonnie. She did a great job up in Hartford. We need more people like Lonnie and Len and myself and Paul, I think. In fact, the honest truth is we have to cross party lines to get a job done.
that's right.
We've done it. Our words don't just say it, we've actually done it. And that's what I think people want in this state and our country. We work for everybody, not one party. And I'm very honored to serve. I learned a lot working with Len, to be honest with you, and I'll probably get choked up, but I'm going to miss truly working with him, but I'm looking forward to working with Paul and the people in North Haven and the state of Connecticut.
Could you give us, could you give us the numbers?
What do you got for numbers, Dave? And thank you.
I got almost 10,000 votes, and I don't know the percent. I don't know, to be honest with you. I got like 9,500 votes to.
You won like 68 to 32.
I won 68 to 32. 68% to 32.
And that's all the absentee
Wow.
ballots are
That's-
allowed?
Well, there's about 800 that they're going to come in tomorrow, and obviously I want to win those. But even if I lose all 800, I'm still, I still won. And it was a tough year because I was verbally attacked, for 3.5, 4 months. And, Len and I believe Paul did the same thing. Every year we just ran on our record. We ran on what we're going to do for the people. We're going to try to do, working for people. And I think it backfired on the people. And I think you don't want to represent a constituency when you're just running on attacks. I'm proud of my work ethic. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm proud of working for all people, not just Republicans, but Democrats, Independents, all people. And I will continue to do that. I'm truly honored. Never wanted to run for political office. I'm truly grateful to the people of North Haven. And I want to thank everybody. I really want to thank the North Haven people, my family, my committee and the town committee and my committee that helps me to get reelected.
David, who's with you wherever it is you are?
I'm at the Republican headquarters in North Haven, Connecticut, Ken.
And who's with you?
Paul.
Besides Paul?
Chris Fletcher, Paul Ciccarello. Yeah, no, you can AJ, my daughter,
Hey, David.
Jim DiCarlo, Mike Frieda. Paul's coming in now. You want to talk to Paul?
Yes,
get Paul.
Mike
Hey, David,
Frieda.
You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from Paul, the new I'm gonna have to try to get, I think, Len. Len might help us, I don't know.
Len, do you have a question for Dave?
Let's do it.
No.
Hey, Paul, congratulations.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to call you back.
Congratulations, Paul. Good
Hey,
job.
Len-
You worked hard. Good job.
Thank you so much.
And
He's definitely better dressed than I.
David. Well, congratulations, Paul. You worked hard. You did a good job.
So what is your reaction to your, first of all, that's your successor we were just talking with, but you got big shoes to fill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a great mentor. And he promised that I could keep him on speed dial.
That's a serious asset. That's a good thing to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great mentor, and it's just so exciting. And just want to thank all of the volunteers, my campaign staff. I couldn't have done it without them. Their direction, Chris Fletcher, AJ Wamble, friends, family, and Len, the RTCs. Truly, truly appreciate all the help from the volunteers and all the positive feedback from the constituents.
What were you hearing when you were talking to your now soon-to-be constituents? I mean, what were their driving issues, the number 1 and 2 issues for them?
What they're worried about getting back to work. I mean, COVID is an issue, but they're worried about what's going to happen after COVID, and they're looking past that. They're worried about, how they're going to feed their families and pay for their health insurance, and they're worried about the public safety as well.
What are your goals in terms of committee assignments? Have you thought about that?
I apologize. Can you say that again?
What interests do you have for committee assignments? Have you given that some thought?
So public safety is an interest of mine. Veteran affairs are 2 interests that I do strongly hold near and dear to my heart. I was in law enforcement, and I think I could give some good direction, and I'd love to contribute.
What were when you were door knocking, what, besides COVID, what did the people want to talk about?
Well, again, getting back to work, affordable health care, the divisiveness in politics too, that came up quite a lot. We're small towns, and that was a concern. The scary times that we're in right now, it came up a lot. And again, it comes back to the public safety, and that also came up a lot.
The issue of criminal justice reform in the state is in the forefront, so it looks like that would be a good fit for you.
Yes, like I said, I would love to be able to get involved with, public safety or judiciary. I think that would be a great fit with my criminal defense. I do criminal defense with my private investigation business, as well as my law enforcement background. I think it would make me well-rounded to kind of see both sides and be able to really contribute positively to those campaigns.
I want to mention that Len Fasano has left the studio briefly. He's going to appear on Channel 3 live, and we're in the middle of a technological revolution here for election night. I mean, we don't have reporters out in the field as we usually do. We would have somebody at the Republican headquarters, et cetera. So will you be heading somewhere for any kind of a celebration?
With the times, we have a small group here. We have to keep in mind the safety of all the volunteers. So I'll be celebrating with my wife and 2 kids tonight.
And will that be pizza or ice cream?
Probably ice cream.
And also, what has been the effect on your family of you running for office a major office. They're all major, but this is a very important district and a very important seat in the time of the pandemic and getting out there with the public. How did that affect your family?
Well, I had great support, again, from all of my family. And like I said, great direction and leadership from Chris and AJ. When it comes to, being safe, my wife is a nurse. We made sure we were using our PPE and keeping our distance when we were knocking on the doors and making sure everybody was comfortable that we were knocking on the doors. First thing we asked is, okay, if we could have a conversation. And we make sure we kept our distance. Again, I have phenomenal support from my wife, 2 children, my parents, and I have so many family members that did volunteer. And it truly gave me the energy to go out every single day, knowing that they were okay with it and they were supporting me. And again, my mother was out just about every day as well, whether it was walking or making phone calls.
Did you say Mike Frieda is with you?
Yes, Mike Frieda is with me.
Is he anywhere near the camera?
No. Mike left?
No.
Did Mike Frieda leave?
I got him. I thought this was my call. I'm teasing you.
No, you can hop right back on.
Hold on. No, I don't care, actually. Let me get him.
Dave's going to grab Mike right now.
That's fine, and obviously we're very live, and this is all new territory for us. But so far, I think it's been an interesting way of doing business, frankly.
Well, can I ask you a question? In North Haven, do we know if the president won the popular vote? Do any of us know that?
I do not know.
Oh, he really left. He did.
Because that was the bellwether 4 years ago. When he took North Haven, I said, something's going on that, So
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Who's that?
Oh, it's, you talking to me?
You're talking to me?
Teal Caliendo.
No, I don't know. I do not know if he won.
Mike, who?
President.
Oh, he won. He won North Haven, yeah.
He won. He did win.
He barely won by a small percentage, but he won.
He won North Haven?
Yes.
Okay.
And is Mike Frieda with you?
I'm sorry, he left.
He did leave.
I can pretend to be Mike if you want. I'll just show you.
okay.
Just, obviously, once the legislative seats are decided, next round is the municipal.
What'd they say?
I said, once the legislative seats are taken care of, the next round is the municipal.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike's going to be running again.
We need to take care of a lot.
All right, well,
We will.
enjoy your celebration with the family. It's a great way to do it, obviously, and who knows, maybe next year it'll be a little larger.
Oh, let's
Next
hope so.
2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Len.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Bye,
Congratulations.
Len. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Whoops. Well, little by little, this is a really an interesting way of getting
Well,
results.
it is hard because normally we would have all the numbers coming in, we'd have a full screen and people would know what was going on.
Right.
So we still don't have the 12th Senate District. But there were some preliminary numbers coming in, but we've got, so the 34th, Paul won. The 86th, Vin Candelora won. The 87th, David Yacarino won. The 98th, Sean ran unopposed, so he is returning. The 102nd, Robin Comey won. So we still don't have the 3rd Congressional District.
Right.
And we still don't have the 12th State Senate District.
Yes, we have few numbers, just very few.
And the congressional situation looks like we don't have the full count for the 3rd district.
No.
So
we
that's
just have
to be
Wallingford, that's all.
But they say all politics are local, and we're watching the local issues come to the fore, and perhaps influenced in some ways by the national picture, and in other ways not.
It's so hard to call in this era. It really is.
Well, I'm optimistic that for our purposes, we might be out of here long before midnight. Listen, I just anecdotally, I used to cover politics in my career at Channel 8 way back in the days of film, and that meant on election night we had to have film shot, brought back to the station, took an hour to process, and then it would go on the air. And today we've got the candidates just coming in to the headquarters, if you will, and it's a different world. You know, they don't even have to stand outside and have a microphone 6 feet away from them. They just come right in. And it's a new experience for us.
Yes.
I know this is called directing from the chair, which is not a good idea necessarily, but I'm wondering if it would be possible after we get these numbers in.
We have the numbers now.
Yeah, just a heads up there.
Yes.
If it would be possible to
Well-
open the door to the control room at some point and take a picture of what our control room looks like. But for now, Teal?
This does not include Durham. So this is the Wallingford 34th Senate District. April Capone, 11,288. Paul Ciccarella, 12,427. We got to say it's tight across the board. It
Yeah.
looks.
And that's a
And
partial.
that does not include Durham, but it wouldn't change it if
Well,
it
and
did.
you've got 2 new candidates. The incumbent's gone, so that
That's right,
always
that's
is
right.
game changer when you have a race. So you have 2 fresh faces, and both of them having clearly, roots and.
But Paul
in,
Ciccarella did win the seat overall, and
Yeah.
this is the East Haven result for that part of the seat. April 62-63, and Paul Ciccarella 73-49. So we see some differences in how the
here's the
how
total.
the 34th
This
was
is the-
won.
yeah.
Oh, there's the final.
Here is the total.
22,298 for April Capone, and 27,779 for Paul Ciccarella. And we believe that does include most all of the absentee ballots for the 34th.
We're going to have to check some of the, I'm hearing that those may not be, are those the correct numbers? All right, we're going to double check those. We're going to double check those numbers, okay? Okay, I'm told these are correct. All right, this is the correct number.
So once again, April Capone, 22,298, and Paul Ciccarella, 27,779. So we're waiting on the 12th Senate District. And do you have any particular friends over there?
The candidate.
Yeah.
I'm trying. She's staying just a second.
Okay.
So,
It's an interesting world between the cell phones and the Zoom capabilities and.
well, it is, but it's sort of this incredible profusion of texts. So, I've got people from New York texting me, and so you're like, wait, where are we? It's like sort of sorting through it all.
Let's see.
We're still going to be getting more full screens for you so that you'll be able to see the exact numbers because apparently they are coming in now. Okay, North Haven, 87th Representative District. Kathy Grant, 4,292. That is the Democrat. David Yaccarino, 9,241. So we were going to try and get Kathy and speak with her. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that, but we are trying to get her. Here we have Brantford, 102nd Representative District. Robin Comey, the Democrat, 7,753. Mark Riccio, the Republican, 5,676. So we are finally getting numbers. 86th, North Brantford area, and this is the Durham. This is just from Durham. You know, I don't know if how do I pronounce? Is it Vincent Mace?
Yes.
Or Mace, okay. And that is 1,140, and Vin Candelaria, 4,495. Guilford, Vincent Mace, 653, Candelaria, 1,128. Wallingford, the 86th. Again, Vincent Mace, 185, Candelora, 467. Okay, the total. Vincent Mace, 2,202, Candelora, 6,770.
That's where we are as of.
I haven't seen any, I mean, I've seen some people have had very strong wins, but I think you start to think that the national is going to really impact some of these with some sort of route. And I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing people choosing either incumbents that they feel comfortable with, or, you know, kind of some interesting voting patterns with two new candidates running for the same.
You know, there aren't any coattails.
There are no coattails, and it's very interesting to see how people are coming out to vote, and I think there was a thought that because of so many of ballots coming in absentee, that was a rout. Aha, they're all for, you know, and it feels like they've split up pretty well.
The ticket splitting, again, going back to when there was a party leaver. I grew up in Philadelphia. I mean, that was how parties really dominated. There was no ticket splitting. When I came to Connecticut, it was still, you know, one pull for everything, and then it changed. And a lot of people were saying, it's going to be too difficult. And now I don't think today's voter even gives it a second thought. It's, if you know you want to vote for somebody, you find them on there. Today's ballot was relatively simple. Even for the third-party people, you could find them. It was not hard to do at all. I did find, actually, one of my former students ran for a legislative office as a third-party candidate, and her position on the ballot was, as she pointed out, you know, the third-party candidates, it's kind of hard sometimes to find them, but I found today, if you had a third-party candidate in your area, it was easy to find. I don't know how many write-ins there may have been, but years ago when I covered the Electoral College for Connecticut meeting in the Secretary of State's office, where she revealed sometime in December exactly who got what vote. But she would start back then, I think it was Ella Grasso back then, and I'm trying to remember who came after, but in any event, the write-ins, almost always, Mickey Mouse won every year. And there were sometimes 200 votes for Mickey Mouse. And I'd be curious to see who's the popular person for write-ins these days if you want to do it. It was available on the ballot today. It wouldn't have been difficult for somebody to write in. I know None of the Above was another one that was popular at times, detecting leader. But there'd be an interesting story on who, if you didn't like either of the top of the party ticket people, who was your alternative, in your opinion, that wasn't on the ballot. And let's see. We're still waiting on the 12th district, Joe Laporta versus Christine.
Apparently, Christine Cohen has won. I don't have any numbers yet, though. We are going to be speaking with her momentarily.
So
that's great.
She won Branford and Guilford, 60-40. And it includes the absentee ballots so far. But it's also Durham, North Branford. So that'll be good. So we're going to speak with her?
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as it can be set up, we are going to be speaking with her.
I moderated a candidates forum with Christine and her opponent that's 2 years ago. And both good candidates, but she has proven to be out of the gate, very, very effective, and there's also been some things, thrown at her along the way that were kind of unfortunate.
No, she's very strong, and she's another person. I was the chairman of the bipartisan bioscience caucus, and Dave Yaccarino was on it, and there was a whole. So I was very worried about where that caucus was going to go, and I asked Christine. I said, "Do you think you could step in and maybe go for chair?" And she was like, "Well, what do we do?" She was learning all the new stuff. She's been so strong, and she's been very bipartisan, and she's really been able to pull people together around issues. And she has a business. She has young children, so she's got this breadth of experience, and she's emotionally connected to so many issues. So she's been very strong, and she's good to work with.
Who is in the Coastal Caucus?
I don't know who's
She
in it
chairs.
now. She's chairing it now.
Is that a group within the legislature?
So what we did, and I used to chair the bipartisan Long Island Sound Caucus.
Oh.
So what you discover is that, and there's a tourism caucus, and there's a manufacturing caucus. You find that you have specific, really, really, serious, deep interest, and you want to do stuff in that arena, and so you can pull people together around certain issues and dive deeper and come up with recommendations for legislation. But you also have events at the Capitol, back in the day, before COVID, where you bring people in and can really converse and get engaged around issues. And so they're great. There's some very strong caucuses, and they do a lot of really good work.
She was instrumental among the people who managed to pass the single-use plastic bag law. Mm-hmm. And not everybody likes that law. And some people are still getting over it, but in terms of the environment, it is one way that you can directly make a difference. And again, back in the 70s, when I was covering the legislature, the bottle bill was really something.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a glass recycling plant in Dayville that, there was a shortage of glass getting recycled because you didn't have the motivation to do it. And when they talked about doing it, some people just, I don't want to be bothered. And it was just one of those things, but it would help. So that was, but boy, that was a long time ago for the bottles.
Well, it is,
for the bags.
it's a re-education process. So people are used to doing what they're doing, and they don't want to change. And so that's where you start from. You start from that really heavy-duty pushback. And the reality is, the plastic bag situation really needed to happen a long time ago. And there were communities. I think Westport had passed the first anti-plastic bag. So communities, municipalities were doing it. But it was so interesting that when finally it was passed, you could see people with their reusable bags all over the place. And it was very easy. And they're going, oh, I don't know why I battled this for so long.
Well, that's it. We've gotten used to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I had one friend who would never wear her seatbelt. It took her maybe 10 years. Eventually she did, but we got used to it.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
I know.
Len,
I know, but change is hard.
Len, for those who stayed with us while you were on Channel 3, what were they interested in from your perspective?
They had Representative Ritter, who's the majority leader, who will be the Speaker of the House on, asking him what it looked like in terms of pickups and losses. He indicated that he thinks they'll pick up between 5 and 10 seats. That's a huge spread. He thinks they're gonna lose 2 seats. Mm-hmm. The old speaker seat, which is a flip district, except when the speaker had it.
Yeah.
So that went Republican, and there was another seat, and I can't remember where that was. But he felt that Demis Claridis' seat, she's the minority leader of the House, that flipped Democrat. But they felt that they were gonna have quite a bit of pickups. On the Senate side, just getting some information, we might have lost 2 seats, but we might pick up 1 seat, so a net loss of 1 seat, which really isn't bad given a deep blue state and the climate that we're in, but there's still numbers to come out. I'm still getting some information. Obviously, senatorial districts are a lot larger than House districts, so it's a little tougher to get all the numbers in.
Do you want to talk about which districts are vulnerable that you might have lost?
Well, I think Gennaro Bizzarro, who has New Britain seat,
yeah.
very tough seat,
Yeah.
very, very tough seat, particularly in a presidential year. And he's a really hard worker, and I hate to see him go. He's a rookie legislator, but he's an extraordinary person, very smart.
Well, and who was it? Rick Lopes, right?
Rick Lopes.
Yeah, so Rick Lopes was in the House for years, so everybody knows him, so.
Right, he left the House to run for
Yeah.
the Senate. Looks like he's going to prevail. The other seat is Senator Logan, who has the Hamden seat and the Valley. And it looks like
Woodbridge, too. Isn't Woodbridge in his district?
a little bit of Woodbridge.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he has Woodbridge. And it looks like he may lose on the absentee ballot count. So we have to wait for that to come in. And I see we have Senator Christine Cohen.
Here she is.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Aha! Congrats!
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. No congrats yet. We still have a lot of voices to be heard, a lot of votes to be counted, but the preliminary results are looking good so far. So
Are they of a nature that the absentee ballots would conceivably possibly make a difference?
yeah, I think I'll say, Brantford, obviously, we have a good showing, and most of the ABs have been counted. I think we'll obviously be waiting on those numbers tomorrow for the ABs that came in today. And the same goes for Guilford. We have a preliminary number of absentee ballots that have been counted already. It looks like with those numbers for both Guilford and Brantford, it's looking like a 60-40 win at this point. So that's really, really great news. It's also looking like at the polls, the Killingworth numbers have come in my favor, which is wonderful, but still waiting on the absentee ballot counts for Madison, Killingworth, Durham, and North Brantford. So certainly not time to proclaim victory at this point, but we're very optimistic about these numbers, and just so grateful that so many people came out to vote today, and really excited about what we're seeing across the state right now.
What did you hear as you went door knocking?
Well, actually, we didn't door knock in the 12th district. We felt that with the pandemic, it was best to reach out to voters in other ways. And so what I was doing a lot of was making phone calls to voters. What I was hearing from folks is that they were really concerned about what was going on at a federal level, making sure that we codify things like pre-existing coverage. Healthcare is very important to people. Folks are incredibly concerned about the unpredictability that the pandemic is bringing. What does that mean for our small businesses? What does it mean for folks that are currently unemployed? So that's something that I was hearing on a regular basis. And of course, I'm the Senate Chair of the Environment Committee. The environment is incredibly important to this district, both in the northern towns where we have a lot of agriculture, rich in our agricultural roots and heritage there, of course, and then the three shoreline towns, on the Long Island Sound, and what that means with sea level rise and what we're all faced with here on the shoreline. And so lots of talk about the environment and what we're going to do to mitigate climate change.
Are you interested in any other committee assignments, or do you like the ones that you have?
Well, I love the environment. I'm thrilled to be Senate Chair of that committee. We work in a largely bipartisan manner to get our work done, and I enjoy it very much. I think we have a lot of work to do. I think this is really, we need to take some bold action with respect to environmental steps and regulation, and I think we can do that together. So I'd really like to stay put on environment. Development. I'm also vice chair of the Commerce Committee. As a small business owner, I think I lend a good voice on the Commerce Committee, and I'd like to see us move some legislation forward that will help our small businesses as well as our working families.
Seems like only yesterday you were elected. That's been 2 years. And for,
That's right.
For a rookie, you seem to have done quite well.
Well, thank you. I mean, we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And quite honestly, we wouldn't have been able to do it without all the people in the district lending their voice, making sure that they email and call me and let me know what's important to them. And then we, in turn, can bring it to the legislature for public hearings and discussion and ultimately onto the floor. And so much of what we've been able to accomplish has been a joint effort with all the folks, the constituents of the 12th District.
Thank you.
You're also co-chair of the Bioscience Caucus.
Yes.
And I'm thinking there are two Connecticut divisions in Connecticut, Moderna and Pfizer, that are really working on the vaccine for the pandemic. Are you engaged in that? I mean, I know that there's been a lot of effort and work pulling constituents together to make sure that they have the support they need.
Thanks, Lonnie. I mean, there's so much going on in that sector right now in Connecticut. It's so exciting. We really have a bubble going on of tremendous growth that we're seeing, particularly in Brantford. We're seeing a lot of bioscience companies pop up. I just was at a ribbon cutting last week, as a matter of fact. And it's not just the vaccine work, but we're seeing a lot of diagnostic tools coming out of Connecticut. I was just visiting a company a few weeks ago that has a diagnostics tool that will just be a game changer, being able to test not only COVID, but the flu and other viral infections that, folks might need to test for because they have an upper.
I believe she's frozen.
And get results within 30 minutes. And that diagnostic tool is completely manufactured right here in Connecticut. So what we're seeing, there are companies in Guilford coming out with also diagnostic tools, therapies, antigen therapies, and what we're seeing in genomics is incredible as well. So it's just an exciting time for Connecticut. We're seeing, like I said, tremendous growth of that sector. And, I think it's going to be really great to get our economy moving.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
I want to wish you congratulations and good luck next year in the session with the budget and everything coming down the pike. And it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Senator. We'll miss you.
Miss you guys.
Yeah.
Have a good night, and I'm sure there are going to be some wonderful foods for some celebration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good night.
We're going to be speaking with Vin
Congratulations.
Candelora soon, but before that, we have to say good night to Senator Fasano. Thank you so much for being with us, but he is very much in demand. So thank you.
This has been a lot of fun and a real pleasure, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate. It's been great, so thank you.
Len, your thoughts on the legislative races and the legislature that you're leaving?
Well, I'm going to miss the institution incredibly. It's just a great place. It's something that I think is worth preserving no matter what side of the aisle you're on. I think it's great to call it the people's place, and Lonnie Reed is someone who understands that because that's how she got involved. Is voices matter, and if you have a cause and you get known, you should run for office. It's a great place to do business. It's just an unbelievable. If you come in and leave the same person you were when you came in, you lost the greatest opportunity that building has to offer anybody. It has changed me in so many different ways. People say when you left, are they going to do things? It's not what they could do for me, it's what I could do for it. It has made me a better person by serving that institution and serving with people like Lonnie and Christina and the rest of them. It's made me a better person. I can't thank the institution enough. That's going to be what I'm going to miss most of all.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But you're going to stay engaged in serious issues, right?
I'm going to try.
Because I'm calling you.
I'm going to try to. But thank you again for
Thank
having
you very
me.
much.
Take care.
Well
It's my
done,
pleasure.
Lynn. Well done.
Hey, Vinny, congratulations before I take off.
Oh, there he is.
Wait, you want to talk to him directly?
Oh, yeah.
Try it?
So Vinny, congratulations. Good job. Now you're going to take this leadership position. I know you're going to do terrific work with the House and lead them in the right direction. You're one of the few people who read every single bill in that package that comes down, know all the issues, and I know you're going to do a great job. I look forward to watching you with a typical critical eye, but I'll be watching you and appreciating the hard work that you always do.
Oh, we can't
Nope.
hear.
I don't
Lost
think
you on
we
the
have
volume.
sound. All right, we're going to have to work on getting sound.
Okay, sorry about
Oh,
that.
there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm using my phone
Good.
remotely, but
Did Carolyn mute
thank
you or what? What happened?
Yeah, but thank you, Len, for those kind words. It's been a pleasure working with you. Obviously, for the last 14 years, I've learned a lot, and I have you on speed dial, so you're going to be pulling your hair out next year.
Thank you. So how'd the House do? How'd you make out?
We're winning some, we're losing some. It's very early to tell because, it's looking like that Republicans are faring well at the machines, but the absentee ballots are certainly humbling. So I think it's going to be a very long night into tomorrow to figure out what this looks like. But I think as we all predicted, we're going to win some and lose some, and we may be up or down, plus or minus 5. I don't necessarily see a wave on either side, but I do think that Republicans are faring better in the blue-collar districts, and Democrats are faring better along the shoreline.
What priorities do you foresee in your role ahead?
Yeah, I think the biggest is navigating through this pandemic, not just from a public health standpoint, but also looking at the other impacts of the pandemic, like preventative health measures, the screenings, colonoscopies, mammograms, and trying to help individuals get that treatment. Additionally, I think that domestic violence and alcohol abuse is also up. So we're going to have challenges on all of those type of social issues on top of a budget with a pretty large deficit. We're going to really need to work on crafting another budget that sort of takes care of Connecticut at the same time and tries to prop up our economy. So there is definitely a lot of work to do in the next session.
How would you describe your working relationship with the governor?
I think generally with both the governor and especially with the legislature, I've had a good working relationship, especially when in 2017 we had to craft a bipartisan budget. I think as Lonnie Reed could attest to, it was a real leap of faith for Democrats and Republicans to come together. It took her courage and her vote to help make that happen. And once we did that and came together as two parties, we produced a really good document. And I think that relationship has held on to today, and it's something that we need to carry forward in the next session.
Lonnie, you're getting a lot of praise tonight.
Well, this was, again, as I said to Len earlier, these are people that you reach out for when you want to find a way through. And Vin has always been one of those people. And as Len said, he reads every bill. He's so meticulous. He knows every component of every bill. And is really easy to work with in terms of, being open for new ideas, but also an incredible generosity of spirit, no scorched earth politics, which just infuriates me when people go at it and start to savage each other. Vin is one of the people who's always been, trying to find a way through, trying to fix what's broken. And, so that's incredibly valuable. And I'm very excited that you're going to be minority leader in the House. And, I think It's going to be very important. You know, when we were doing the bipartisan budget, one of the huge issues that we see, and this is going to clearly happen again, is the shift and shaft issue, where the state dumps certain budget items onto the towns and gets it off their books, and now their books look good. But suddenly your property taxes skyrocket. And so, you know, that's something that Vin and I work really hard to combat. And Len as well, and several other people along the shoreline. We really had a real bipartisan coalition working on that. But that feels like that theme is going to come back.
Vin, where are you and who's with you right now?
So right now, I am in Waterbury with a lot of our House Republican staff. We're taking in the results statewide. And so all the races, the various races I worked upon, you know, we're getting all the texts and coming in of where people are. And I have to say it's very slow coming in. So those races that won by large margins, we're certainly seeing, you know, those races called, but there are just so many that are probably not going to be determined till tomorrow once the AB totals are in.
Can you give us an idea of how things are going with the congressional results?
You know, that's a good one, and I really don't have any idea. It's too broad for me to pull all those numbers in. I know generally North Branford, it sort of went Republican across the ticket, so it was sort of a 2-to-1 margin Republican. Other districts, not so much. You know, you can see somewhat of a ticket splitting. I will say, like in my district, you know, the ABs were much closer. You know, I won on the machines 3-to-1, and the ABs were a little bit closer of 1-to-2, or some it was neck and neck, like in Guilford. So it's hard to extrapolate, but I generally think Democrats voted via AB by a larger percentage, and Republicans voted in person by a larger percentage.
Do you think it's time for Connecticut to take a look at the voting rules? We're one of very few states that don't give you a very good head start. With the ballots and
evaluate what we've done and how to fix it. Because there's a lot that went in to these these elections, and I think we've got to hear from the registrars and the town clerks of how we improve what we've done this time and take a look. But I do think it's time, to look at absentee ballot voting, some kind of expansive voting. It's not something I object to per se, but we just need to make sure the process is done correctly. We had a lot of errors this year, which I don't think is going to have an impact, but we're handed out to the wrong districts. It happened in one district 2 years ago. We saw it in a number of districts this year. So we really need to peel that back and take a look at why that occurred.
What was your experience at the polling place today?
It was subdued. I think the days of being at the polls and sort of rallying your base, and it's changed. Over the years, I think it's much more passive. Rather than handing out literature and being aggressive, you stand back, you greet people, you say hello. You get a little bit of a reunion. There are some constituents I only see on election day, so it's nice to be at the polls to say hello to some of those people. But it's definitely become, I think, a less aggressive nature, at least in our district, and it's just been more of a passive meet and greet. But the polls were steady, but clearly less of a turnout. It wasn't as busy because of the absentee ballot utilization.
Thank you very much. Anything you want to add, Teal?
No, but thank you very much for being with us. We are going to be talking to Vincent Mace in a few minutes. I'm still wondering if we're getting any other numbers from the 3rd District.
Congratulations, Vin.
Thank you, Lonnie. Take care.
You too.
No good numbers from the 3rd, not consistent, so. I can't understand whether it's taking so long to come in, because usually we would get something like that, but it's got to be very, very close between Stryker and DeLauro. as I said, we will be speaking with Vincent Mace in a few minutes.
Well, we have some numbers for the 86th district. Vincent Mace, 2202. And I don't see,
Okay.
oh, here is some other 86s. He had 653 in Guilford, 1140 in North Branford, 224 in Durham. Yeah, we're getting the results in strange little dribs and drabs.
Well, I guess this is a year like no other year, so it's also when it comes to elections like that. I'm just curious as to what the national numbers, what impact they're having. There were the pickups by the Democrats in Connecticut, I guess on the coattails of Biden, but what else is going on?
It wouldn't be a surprise for Joe Biden to pick up all of the electoral votes in all of New England. There really isn't much of a Republican constituency in the Northeast.
Well, I saw the numbers from, Dixville Notch that came in this morning, that were all five for Biden, so.
That's interesting for Dixville Notch, even though it's only, first of all, only five. It may be that people are either leaving, that's the small town in New Hampshire that votes at midnight, and by 12:01 they have their results. But it sounds like their numbers were, well, that's just the Joe Biden count, you're saying?
No, that was it.
No, that was it?
There were only five votes.
Well, that's half.
Only five.
I remember I used to be sent up there to cover races, and there were a lot more than five. Boy, what's going on in Dixville?
I think they said there were about 12 people who were eligible, but only 5 people
That's
voted.
interesting.
They may have stayed and they're just passing on, and others might be fleeing.
But New Hampshire's, it's tricky, and also Maine. Those are two states that, you assume all Democratic, but, it can get tricky. And I think Hillary Clinton came out of New Hampshire with a small lead, which was a signal that there were issues.
Something was going on.
It's, you never know.
Well, it's not so much a matter of the state. I think it's the areas. I mean, there are areas in Connecticut that are totally Democratic and areas that are totally Republican. I think it's just that way all over.
Well, we're still waiting for that next video.
We're waiting, a live shot with Vincent. We're waiting for Vincent Mace. We're setting up the live shot, the Zoom shot. And I'm told we're also trying to get April Capone, who lost to Paul Ciccarella. And she was the former mayor of East Haven, and then she moved here and was vying with him for the 34th district because it was an open seat because of Len Fasano. And so we're going to have an interview with April also at some point.
So
that's a good idea. Why don't we show people you brought some video with you tonight?
Oh yes, that is a good idea. I mean, we were talking, we've been talking, and that's sort of a through line through all of this is the absentee ballots. And I thought it was interesting what Representative Candelora said, that he thought that the GOP mostly showed up in person, but there was a huge tsunami of absentee ballots that were Democratic. So that was very concerning, and what that process was going to look like. So this is Branford today, as they were opening the absentee ballots, and it started, I think, at 10, and kept on going all day. But you can see how meticulous they are. They brought people on who know what they're doing. There was an enormous amount of precision in double checking. And so from the perspective of whether it was a well-done activity, that it was something that we can have faith in and confidence in.
Who are these people?
So these are, I'm going to pull up some of the names. So John Mooney, I don't know, have you met him? John Mooney has been everything in Brantford. And so he was the head moderator. His son was also a moderator, Steve Mooney. Janet Kaminsky is the assistant registrar. Pat Torrey, assistant registrar. Emily Torrey, who's a sophomore at UConn. So she was there helping with, and everybody gets trained. So you don't just show up and, start going at it. Mia Tilton and Michael Torrey Jr., the son of Pat Torrey. So it was a very, very devoted, meticulous operation. And Joe also worked with the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services for years. And he was chaired, I don't know if he still is chairing, our Board of Finance in Brantford. And he's got an enormous bipartisan following. He's incredibly well respected.
Who can we thank for this video?
So this is, I should thank you for reminding me. John Hartwell, who's actually on the board of BCTV in Brantford. For a living, he has a company that actually does digital media. And they take care of also many candidates and that kind of thing. So he had volunteered and was sort of part of the process of being there for the opening of the ballots. And I had asked him, can you send me some counts when it's appropriate? And he said, I did better than that. I took one of my digital cameras and I photographed it. So he actually, in addition to kind of overseeing it, he photographed and, these people hard at work. So I really want to thank him because that was very helpful. I said, we're in Zoom land now, so it's really sort of hard to get video and get, visuals, and so he contributed
But it's
that.
real people counting the ballots, not robots or machines.
No, real people counting the ballots, and again, and again, and again. And at the end there, you saw them putting them into those envelopes. So they've all been accounted and accounted for, and double-checked and triple-checked, and now they're being sealed into envelopes in case there's any kind of a recount. And they have to go back at them again, that they'll know exactly that they've been well preserved, and they'll know where they are and protected. And so it's quite the process. And then I think another 600 ballots came in after 8 o'clock. So, so then the process begins again to make sure that you have those ballots.
It's amazing to think the resurgence of paper in the election counts, and I gather it just may be a trend down the line that we're going to take a look at after the census data is here and reapportionment comes in and the legislature looks into all kinds of things. I think we heard the statement that the registrars need to get together and tell the legislature what they need in order to further improve the process. But it's an interesting insight that it's actually labor that it takes to count those things.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ken. Once again, we do have somebody over my shoulder. This is Vincent Mace. He was running in the 86th district. Mr. Mace, what are your thoughts right now?
Well, the key word is was running, obviously. What are my thoughts now? Obviously, the national Republicans seem to be stronger than what the polls had predicted.
Yeah.
And certainly my opponent, being a 14-year incumbent, certainly, obviously, earned the votes of the majority of the members of the 86th district. So those are my sentiments, and I congratulate him. I will say that both of us ran a fair campaign. It wasn't negative against either person. I thought it was a class act. No insults, no name calling. My position was based on what I would do different than what he has done. and how I would try and help our district prior to helping the state of Connecticut and build a platform based on working within your own backyard first and then going out and helping the other 165 cities and towns to better the state of Connecticut.
What did you hear from the constituents as you met with them and sought their votes?
Well, there's certainly a variety of things, you know, certainly the pandemic. I mean, coronavirus has occupied 80% of people's lives right now, you know. The economy was another big factor. Climate change, the environment, another big topic. So those were probably, and unemployment, those were probably the 4 top things facing the people in the 86th district. And like I said, my platform was reaching out to those unemployed, reaching out to those with the coronavirus, and trying to help the cities and towns as much as we can after we help the 86th district first.
And what are you anticipating doing in the next couple of years as a citizen, Vin?
Well, I am a very busy person. I am an attorney. I am the president of a local union. I do sit on the Board of Education for the town of North Branford. I love giving back to the community. I happen to be very fortunate, you know. I came out of the projects of New Haven and worked my way up to where, you know, my wife and I and our 3 adult children and our 8 grandchildren moved into the suburbs, and we've been out here for 36 years. And I want to be able to help those people who have lived the way I have lived to try and improve their lives and be able to live in the suburbs and in a one-family house. It's the American dream, and I think we don't do enough to try and help those who have the potential to do it but don't know how to do it, and give them a path so that they can accomplish it and have a good quality of life, and hopefully also with their employment.
This was your 3rd run.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of reasons for you to keep on running, and there may be some that say, oh, 3 strikes, who knows? What do you think? What do you think?
Well, let me say this. Within my union, over the past 42 years, I've ran numerous times and lost, and I never gave up. And then one day I won, and then I kept on winning. So if Joe Biden at 78 years old could run for the president of the United States, I'm 70. I probably got 8 years good in me. So I'll see how it goes in the next couple of years. How the climate has changed, and don't forget, in 2 years there's going to be a gubernatorial race. A gubernatorial race may be a little bit different than a presidential race. So I may fare better if I decide to run. But then again, like I said, you know, I have a wife, I have 3 adult children, 8 grandchildren, and, you know, I'm a family man, and we're all 3 of my children and the 8 grandchildren, my wife and I, we're all very close. We do a lot of stuff together. And I have their backing, and if I continue to have their backing, then I'll see what I can do.
What's 1 or 2 things that you take with you from this campaign?
I'm going to be honest with you. I learned a lot in this campaign because of the pandemic. I learned a lot about the Connecticut budget. I learned a lot about the rainy day fund. I learned a lot about the state employees pension fund and the teachers pension fund. I learned a lot about the finances. I learned a lot about how those unemployed in the different areas, you know, the hotel workers, the tourism, the restaurant workers, the unemployed. I mean, I really learned a lot. So, and maybe at some point in time in the future, I could share what I've learned and put it into resolutions, positive resolutions for those that may need help in the future.
On a personal note, and aside from your current political activity, your bio indicates that you worked for the U.S. Post Office before becoming an attorney. And I have some good friends at the North Haven Post Office, and they were resenting the antagonistic things that were said about the postal system and the ability to deliver ballots.
Yeah, well, let me say this. The new Postmaster General certainly handicapped the Postal Service when he was appointed, and he disassembled 600 sorting machines that do 39,000 pieces of mail an hour. And they took off thousands of collection boxes off the streets. And if you remember years ago, almost every other corner had a blue mailbox. And as the mailman delivered his route or her route, they would hit those blue boxes and bring the live mail back to the Postal Service by 3:30, 4 o'clock. It would get sorted. And in the state of Connecticut, that mail, as long as it was in the state of Connecticut, got delivered the next day. Now, the Postal Service gave them 2 days to deliver first-class mail instead of overnight mail. And taking those blue boxes off, that means people had to drive to a location, to drive to a post office. So that hurt the process of how mail got picked up, got processed, and got delivered to its destination. So, yeah, I've been involved with the Postal Service since 1974, so 46 years of being involved with the Postal Service. I have a lot of knowledge about the Postal Service and how it works and how it should work. Unfortunately, a lot of your top-level managers don't want to listen to the employees under working for. They feel they know better than we do, and we feel that we have a lot of good ideas and they don't want to accept. That's kind of what happened.
That's great. You've got a lot of great experience, and I'm sure you'll be putting it to good use one way or another.
And
I hope so.
And we look forward to seeing you again.
I hope so too, as long as I'm around and I'm healthy, and as you know, that's the key. It's a little bit harder to tie my shoes in the morning than it's over. All of those things, when you wake up and you get out of bed, you got to limp a few steps before you start straightening it up again. But I think I can handle it in 2 years.
I think we all understand what you're talking about.
Thank you, and have a good night, and enjoy your time, your newfound time with your family tonight. And
thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to be here and speak with all of you. Thank you very much.
And I just want to say congratulations on putting yourself out there. It's so hard to do, and it takes a lot of courage. And congratulations for making the run.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and your appreciation for me running. Thank you very much.
Good night.
All right.
We are going to go through the totals now. They're going to be coming up on a screen and soon. There we are. Okay, we have in Branford the 12th Senate District. Christine Cohen, the Democrat, 9,959. Joe Laporta, the Republican, 6,795. Durham, 12th Senate District. Christine here did not win, had 760, and Joe Laporta had 1,278 in Durham. This is where what happened in Guilford. Once again, we had Christine Cohen with 9,115, Joe Laporta, 4,884. Killingworth, pretty close. Christine, 2,107, Joe Laporta, 2,035. Madison, Christine was obviously didn't take Madison. It was 2,602, and Joe Laporta, 3,665. In Branford, 1,798 for Christine Cohen and 3,814 for Joe Laporta. And the totals. Christine, 26,341. Joe Laporta, 22,471. In North Haven, the 34th Senate District, April Capone, the Democrat, 4,747. Paul Ciccarella, the Republican, 8,003. Wallingford, the same contest. Capone, 11,288. Ciccarella, 12,427. East Haven, Capone, 6,263. Paul, Ciccarella, 7,349. The total in the 34th Senate District, Capone, 22,298. Ciccarella, 27,779. Durham, the 86th Representative District. Vincent Mace, whom we spoke with just a few minutes ago, 224. Candelora, 680. Same race in North Branford. Mace, 1,140. Candelora, 4,495. Guilford, Mace, 653. Candelora, 1,128. Wallingford, Mace, 185. Candelora, 467. Okay, and the totals, Mace, 2,202. Candelora, 6,770. North Haven, the 87th District, Kathy Grant, 4,292. Yacarino, 9,241. That was in North Haven. In Branford, nobody ran against Sean Scanlon. So that was easy to call. Here we have in Branford, Robin Comey, Democrat, 7,753. Mark Riccio, 5,676. Okay, we are going to wrap it up now because we've got those numbers in. I would say in the era of Zoom, this is very interesting. But it's live TV, so that's the way it goes.
Well, a couple of things. The ticket splitting shows that the people in this region know how to do it, and they do it. The influences do tend to show a lot of local politics and local interests, not a blue wave, as someone pointed it out, and some good people, you know, the candidates and the opponents, a lot of people with a lot of experience. And I must say, to be able to do this with BCTV, NHTV, and Totoket TV, covering all these legislative districts and getting so many of the people who ran somehow into the program,
which is
one way or
amazing.
another.
Yes.
And it's just an amazing technological feat. And at some point, as we do wrap up, you'll be able to get a chance to see the control room, which has part of this small army of people who have been putting things on. That's where the results were coming in, and where the shots were being directed, and where the communication was like, who's coming up, and who do we have, who don't we have. And when there were technical problems, they had milliseconds to fix them. It's been a great experience for everybody. And there's another part of the building with some more of what they call the ingestion numbers, et cetera. And people behind the cameras, we do not have any robots. We could count ballots if we had spare time. But this is certainly, Teal, over as many as 15 years ago, being associated with election nights and other things, it's different.
This was it kept you on your toes. We may look like we didn't know what we were doing sometimes, but that's okay.
We didn't.
Yes. And Lonnie, thank God you were here. That's all I have to say.
Oh, this was, and
added oh my God, it was wonderful because your insights just made everything, the show was great.
Oh, it was great to work with you guys. And I have to say, I kind of like this format because when you're up in the legislature, number one, they're not getting lost in the shuffle, these important candidates, but we're showing how connected the region is, and it's really important to kind of give people a look at that. You know, that people can they can work together.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think we do in this state, well, especially in the North Haven area. We've always said there was camaraderie. I just wish it would permeate nationally.
yeah.
I want to mention that we go way back. We were on competing stations once upon a time, early in our careers. And working with you in this capacity, because I've never had the chance, other than a parade, to co-host with you. I mean,
Well, that's right. That was good. Yeah, because you were on vacation, or
you had another commitment.
you had
there.
another commitment.
I had a wedding.
Yeah.
I performed.
I know, it was important.
I performed
And
the
Teal
wedding.
thought that was more important.
I
No, no,
performed the wedding.
It was,
I married
I
my
got
cousin.
you.
I married
got
my
you. But
cousin.
it was a delight to have you, and I've known Len over the years. I once watched him give a graduation speech at Hamden Hall, and I was just like, man, this guy could be the governor. And who knows? Stranger things have happened, and I think, again, we saw a lot of really good people tonight. And again, I wanted to mention that this took a lot of people to make happen.
Yes.
And frankly, from the conception of what would happen and where things would go and everything. We are in, I think it's important to note, we are in a 200-year-old building. If I have it correct, it started out as a school. Somewhere along the way it became the town hall. And it's opposite of White Church, and this has a white paint job on the outside. It's just an amazing intersection in Totucket. I'm just learning how to say that correctly. But I think when we leave tonight and lock up, the ghosts can come back and take over their positions
It's a
so
lovely,
soon.
lovely old cemetery.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we have a cemetery right across
Lovely.
the street. So this must have been a wonderful.
It's a metaphor.
So I
No, I'm just saying.
no.
It's a religious experience.
Yeah. It was a spooky election night for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody for watching. And this has been an incredible range of towns and people and legislative races and so on and so forth. But as you mentioned, there's a commonality, a lot of common interests. And it's just a great part of Connecticut, maybe an underrated part of Connecticut. We may not be part on the tourist map necessarily because people just don't know what's here. So I think it's safe to say for all of us at BCTV, NHTV, Totucket TV, thank you for being with us. And if all goes well, we'll be back a year from now with municipal and who knows beyond that. Thank you, and have a good night or a good day, depending on when you're watching.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.